of Medici. The annual festivities are held in honor of Medici's de facto head of state, General Sebastiano di Ravello.
Just Cause 3 is the latest open-world video game to hit the market. Set in the fictional Mediterranean island of Medici, you take on the role of mercenary Rico Rodriguez, working with the rebels to retake the island from the vicious dictator General de Ravello. Throughout the campaign, you work with a racially diverse cast of supporting characters as you stop the flow of an important resource called Bavarium and carry out all manner of crazy missions on foot or in vehicles. Developed by Avalanche Studios, who also worked on the recent Mad Max, it's now available for the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and Microsoft Windows.
I'm Mario, my bro.
I am not your bro.
The game's had a bit of a rocky release on the PC, with lots of people complaining about optimization and other connection issues. Now, it's true, the game does run like horse shit straight out of the box. Considering how well Mad Max ran, it's a bit of a shame that it suffers from these kind of issues. They are working on patching this, but in the meantime, I found that what fixed it for me was turning off VSync, which keeps my frame rate above 60 most of the time. If you're seeing mixed or negative reviews for this game on Steam or Metacritic, I think that's more aimed at the performance issues as opposed to the base game, so keep that in mind. It at least seems that these performance problems are justified in the sense that this is a pretty damn good looking game. The backdrop of Medici is picturesque, colourful and serene. Explosions are gorgeous to look at, and there's a kind of domino effect during gunfights where everything around you has a habit of spontaneously exploding. Set on a map of around 400 square miles, there's a whole lot of stuff to see and do here in cars, planes, choppers, and by using Rico's upgraded grappling hook, parachute and wingsuit to move across the island. Coming to grips with the new wingsuit controls takes all of 5 minutes, and it makes navigating much more enjoyable and also quicker. The grappling hook is really at the center of the gameplay, and being able to move quickly around, especially during combat, is a life or death kind of skill. Rico also looks and sounds a lot different since his incarnation in the previous game. He now seems to be doing some kind of Ezio Auditore impression and seems to have lost his edge, making cheesy one-liners less regularly. Overall, Just Cause 3 lacks the cheesy charm from the previous game, all that god-awful voice acting from the various faction leaders, the tongue-in-cheek music, and the 2 or 3 insults you'd hear Rico repeating over and over during combat, pipeline jerks being one that comes to mind. Anyway, as I said, Rico's eventual goal is to retake Medici one province at a time. Now, what this mostly involves is liberating settlements and military bases before the province can be reclaimed by the locals. Moving on to the next campaign mission will often require you to have liberated a certain amount of provinces beforehand. People who've played the last game will quickly settle into this rhythm of gliding around, blowing things up, and slowly taking over the map one section at a time, which is a good or bad thing depending on your point of view. In all honesty, Just Cause 3 is little more than Just Cause 2 with a visual overhaul and a wingsuit. It feels like a game made in 2010, and no, I don't mean that in a fuzzy, nostalgic kind of way. I mean, it just feels dated. When considering the gameplay in Just Cause 3, I look at it as a matter of it constantly taking 2 steps forward, but 1 step back. Yeah, they've made a few modifications and changes for the better, but it still largely suffers from a lot of the problems that the second game had. If you played the previous game, you know that taking over settlements forms about 99% of the content, and this carries across to the sequel as well. In Just Cause 3, they've gotten rid of the weapon and vehicle upgrade parts, which are now earned through various challenges, so it's quite possible to liberate a settlement from a chopper, for instance, without ever having to leave the cockpit. The amount of things you need to destroy are a lot easier to find and even highlighted on the map screen, and I'm sure anyone who played the previous game would know how annoying it was to be gliding around a settlement for like 15 minutes, looking for that one water tank or propaganda van that you missed. In towns, you usually also have to clear a police station, which involves raising the gates to let in the rebels, then often freeing prisoners before killing a certain amount of soldiers. Detonated explosives are now infinite, allowing you to initially place up to 3 at a time, again much better compared to Just Cause 2, where you'd often run out of them fairly quickly. Overall, it's a much quicker process to liberate settlements, but this is about all I can think of that improves the base mechanics. It seems everything else has a good and a bad side to having been modified. Ordering weapons through the black market, or through rebel drops as it's called now, can be done by ordering multiple items at a time, saving you from having to revisit this menu repeatedly to get what you want, but then on the flip side, there's no upgrades for weapons anymore, and you have to take over military bases to get your hands on some of the better guns. They've added a regenerating health bar system, which makes the game a little bit more forgiving, but now you don't have an actual health bar, so you never really know how close to death you actually are. Just Cause 3 is perpetually uploading various stats to some kind of server where it shows you on the online leaderboards ranked against other people, where, you get informed that a charming gentleman like John the Titty Tamer managed to score more headshots than you did. Again, this is a neat idea, but connection problems can cause the game to lock up as it tries to reconnect you to the service. The grappling hook can now be used to tether 2 items together, like say an enemy soldier and an explosive barrel. Again, yes, a neat idea, but half the time the hook might go through something solid, like a concrete wall, and the mechanic just doesn't work. And this kind of sums up Just Cause 3 on the whole. There's a lot of good ideas here, but a lot of the newer additions don't seem all that fleshed out. It's kind of like they've just gone, let's just chuck all this stuff in there and see how it goes. Like these new challenges that unlock all the upgrades, they're just not fun. The score you get at the end of them will dictate how many gears you get, which in turn is used for acquiring the upgrades for all the various categories, but the challenges are often just tedious and boring, and you have to earn these upgrades and unlock them in a very preset pattern. And you really need certain upgrades as well to be effective. Even something like manual aiming is an upgrade you need to acquire. And this really is an essential upgrade because the auto-aiming system is fucking atrocious and wildly inaccurate. But I mean, can you think of any other game that makes a basic control mechanic an unlockable upgrade? Then they go and do other things that make no sense, like removing the minimap or removing the dodge roll. Like, for what purpose? Why the hell would they remove that? Furthermore, my frustration is compounded because, as I said, all of the things that used to piss me off in Just Cause 2 have been carried across. Like, little has been done to improve the driving controls, which still just feels very sluggish. You should really be using the grappling hook and the parachute over driving around anyway, but certain missions require you to drive and often under pressure. Supposedly the people who worked on the Burnout games tweaked the controls and the handling, but I think it still feels really shoddy. Flying can also suffer a bit as well because you can't even use the mouse to steer planes. It's almost like they don't give two shits about people playing on the PC. Explosions still have a tendency to cause you to go into ragdoll mode where Rico flops around until he loses momentum, during which time enemies are free to shoot the living shit out of you. Sometimes you'll be gliding through the air and some hotshot hits you in mid-glide from a vantage point you can't even see with an AA gun or a sniper rifle, sending you flying to the ground. It's bullshit. Now, what really shoots the game in the foot though is that it's just so similar to Just Cause 2. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong here, Sonny Jim, but isn't the point of a sequel to generally change and improve the previous game? I mean, even Fallout 4 managed to differentiate itself from Fallout 3, for better or for worse. I don't know, I'm not a game developer, so maybe I'm just talking out my ass here, but yeah, I always thought sequels were supposed to be better than their predecessors. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they just copied and pasted lines of code from Just Cause 2 into Just Cause 3, because aside from a few incidental differences, it controls almost exactly the same, and this is coming from someone who played the previous game for a couple hundred hours. Maybe next time, instead of making two half-assed games, Avalanche Studios should pool their resources into the one project, because Just Cause 3 is wasted potential. Yes, the explosions look pretty and there's a huge world here to explore, but it's really just all the problems of a last-gen title with a next-gen shine. Just Cause 3 isn't a bad game, it's just a disappointing one. Pipeline jerk.